Welcome back to the soap opera of the stars. We're on week 2 of July, so the 8th of July to the 14th of July. As always, I'd like to begin with sharing I'm not an astrologer, I'm not a human design expert. I use astrology and human design both for myself as well as with my clients in my intuitive energy practice. And I've worked for about 14 years with that intuitive ability and 1,000 people. And in the last couple of years, where I have been using astrology and human design, I've definitely found that it helps to inform in terms of how we need to look at ourselves and what we need to understand about the general themes that are influencing our lives right now. The whole point of sharing these as stories is to make them a little lighter, to make them a little more fun, and to really look at what are the themes that they are bringing up. The reason why I share them at the end of the week instead of at the beginning is because I feel rather than use it as a predictive tool, it is better to use it as a tool for self-growth, personal development, and to really look back at how these themes have impacted us, what are the questions that need answering, and how we need to move forward in life or go deeper in terms of our self-work. I do share on Instagram a general theme for the week, short videos, which is at the beginning of the week. So you're welcome to look at that and then to use these more from the perspective of how has this impacted me and what can I do with it going forward. So let's begin with the stories. Venus is prepping for her final meeting with Mars before he leaves for Leo. And she, was unsure. She knew she wanted to get into retreat mode at some point. She wanted some peace and quiet to think about everything that had been going on and what she wanted to do with it. But that time wasn't here just yet. Also, Venus liked to be prepared for these things. She knew that she could go into a retreat and get really grumpy, which means she would decide to only do the things that made her feel indulgent. And then she would spin into judgment about herself, about being a procrastinator, about being lazy, which would make her more grumpy, and all the good stuff that she could do would be gone. She would rather ensure she has a plan, because while she totally intended to indulge herself, she knew she would feel so much better were she to balance that with also being able to work out some of the things that needed working out. She remembered how useful her conversations with Chiron had been while she was feeling uncomfortable in Aries, and almost absent-mindedly sent him a text asking for a quick chat. Chiron wasted no time in responding, and Venus let him know what was concerning her. "So, you want someone to keep you on the path like an accountability partner?" asked Chiron. "No," said Venus, "a little more than that. I think I want a coach, someone who will be able to nudge me in the areas that I need to work on, who will also help me get the clarity I need, and who will also keep me accountable." "Ah, I think we have your person," says Chiron. "In fact, I think we have more than one person." "Who?" says Venus, looking at him a little quizzically. "Well, you have them living in your space, Venus, and they're going to be there a while." "Oh, right," says Venus, "of course. Uranus will be able to coach me, and I can ask Jupiter if he would be okay for us to work together, given he's looking at a creative project himself." "Well done," says Chiron, indicating he thought his work was done and disappearing from view. Venus was feeling excited now. She knew deep within that this was the answer to her problems, and that she would be taken care of. It really resolved so many things at the same time that she was floored by Chiron's wisdom and help. She'd already been having conversations with both Uranus and Jupiter. She was definitely going to bump into them given their being in Taurus. And while Uranus had just completed a project, Jupiter was thinking of one. So it would be a great way to brainstorm with these two different perspectives. Now, whether or not she was going to be able to add value was something she needed to think about. No, she corrected herself. She knew she was going to be able to add value, but she needed to be conscious about it. She needed to make sure she stayed aware and made the time for adding value to them as well. That's what she needed to think about. Well, now it was time to meet Mars, and she found him looking like he'd swallowed a fly and didn't know what to do about that. I'm a little nervous about moving to the house of Virgo, he said. Another house of Mercury. I'm just not sure I'm ready for all that structure and just mind stuff, I mean, you know me, I'm all about doing stuff, acting, the making it happen, and I don't want to get all tied up into knots in my head again. Leo was a different energy. Or, like the Cancer thing, where it's all about the how you feel stuff. I mean, Leo again was a different energy to that, and he was a little out of breath by this time with his rant. Venus laughed, a lovely laugh that got Mars to catch his breath and also unwind. What makes you think you won't be doing in Virgo? Says Venus. I think the structure and focus and routine there will actually get a lot more doing out of you and a lot more focus doing, which you now seem to be ready for. We've been through so much over the centuries, the millennia, and we know these cycles are never ending. We learn, we forget, we learn again, and the universe still twirls about without a care. We just need to keep our focus on the right now, doing the best we can with what's coming up. We're so taken care of and guided. And she told him about her decisions today. Oh, cool, Mars responded. And so interesting, given I've been wondering whether to ask Saturn to be my guide for this docu-series I want to do. Feels like something right up his alley. And now, the thing is, that's the thing I'm fretting about. I'm tired of standing around talking about this. I really want to get going. Yes. Mars and Venus turn around to see Nona and Shona, the North Node and the South Node respectively, also watching the same part of the universe as them, and therefore privy to their conversations. Look, it's always a bit of a mess in the beginning, Mars. You're thinking and planning and finding the resources, and it can feel chaotic and it all coming together. But Venus is right about Virgo helping you with the structures you need. And once you have that, you will be able to move forward. Too many projects do not see the light of day at Shona because there's no clarity in the beginning on the reason behind the project. And you have a good reason, don't you? So that was what was buzzing in Mars's mind the next few days as he packed up, moved into Virgo, where he received a most cordial and proper welcome. It was simple, no pomp and show like Leo, but efficient and complete. He knew where everything was, he knew the rules and the exceptions. He was informed about who was visiting or not during his stay. Where he could not venture was made very clear. Consequences of venturing there were also made very clear in a very clinical manner. And then he was told the possibilities available for immense adventure and pleasure in as clinical a way, and yet it felt quite appealing. There was something about this house though. It felt welcoming in an I know my boundaries and don't mess with me kind of way. It made Mars itch to actually mess, but also conscious not to mess. Mars shook his head. This will take some getting used to. He was feeling a bit concerned though at a certain uptightness he hadn't noticed in previous visits to Virgo and wondered what had caused it. What Mars did not know as yet was that while he and Venus were stargazing, Mercury and Pluto had come head to head on an issue that sort of involved him, and that was being reflected by this house of Mercury. Mercury had been sharing their decision to not follow through on the creative project they were earlier so excited about, and in the telling had decided to drop that this was because Mars and Venus were being so uncooperative about sharing stories from their journals. And then they had also added how they thought Pluto was being silly, even thinking about working with Mars when he was such a bully and self-involved and would probably not give any credit where it was due in any case. Pluto had started with politely letting Mercury know that what project she worked on was none of their business, and that she actually agreed with Mars and Venus on the need for privacy. Mercury, of course, could not have let it go there, and they had continued trying to convince Pluto that she was being used by a narcissistic fiend that was Mars, and how he knew this because he had read the journals and she needs to believe Mercury. Pluto started emanating dangerous sparks at this point, warning Mercury not to question her ability to make her own decisions, and once again reiterating her opinion that journals, even if a property of Gemini, was sacred and could not be used as judgment, and certainly not to malign the person when he wasn't in the room. Mercury let Pluto know that they thought she should relax and not get all triggered by her insecurity around the project. And that was the last straw for Pluto, who, while recognizing the truth of what Mercury was saying about her being triggered, was enraged at such a pompous, loose-mouthed, disrespectful, and at this point actually allowed the shadows always present around her to launch an attack on Mercury. Mercury was quick enough to shield himself, but almost let loose his own fireworks on Pluto when suddenly they both felt a sense of calm and almost anesthetic numbness, which was their cue that Neptune had arrived to save the day. Come, as much as I enjoy both of you getting in touch with your feelings, I would advise you to not start a war out here. There's enough warring on Earth for a few galaxies, so let's not add to it. I feel you're both triggered, Neptune said, smiling kindly, knowing that neither would react, but that they needed to be seeded with the importance of weathering this crisis to really process what was making both of them scared to commit to projects they clearly wanted to do. Neptune no longer had this fog available to him now that he was on retreat, and therefore wasn't actively working on evolution, but he had enough influence over both of them, and he was pleased to see them visibly relax and smile sheepishly at each other, and so all three went back to what they were doing. Mercury knew the reason they had made this uncomfortable was their own displeasure at having to move to Leo, and how hot and bothered and just uncomfortable they were going to be, especially given Sun, and the possibility of being burnt alive would be looming over them once more when Sun came into Leo in a few weeks' time. The only saving grace they felt was Venus's presence and the fact that she would balance things out for now. But he was a little guilty that she may find out about this tiff with Pluto, and in any case, she wasn't looking very kindly at this journal fiasco. So she wasn't going to look kindly at this either. I guess I'm going to have to tell her the story from my perspective and make it look like a misunderstanding, determined Mercury, suddenly looking forward even less to their move to Leo. That would be a lie, and she will figure it out, they felt Shauna say telepathically, and looked around in concern at why the nodes were being able to communicate this way. Then remembered they were in Cancer, and that the moon had allowed the nodes some special powers, as had Sun. Then they felt Nonna on the edges of their mind, letting them know to embrace the chaos that Leo was for them, and reminding them that they would be in their house of Virgo soon enough, and for an extended rest. So use this time where all the shadows come to light to birth the stories you want to. If you are honest about your need for help, you will be aided, added both the nodes quite prophetically as they vanish from touching Mercury's mind, and Mercury heaves a sigh of relief at the end of the intrusion. Now, speaking of telepathic communication, Jupiter and Earth had established a connection and were exchanging thoughts. Earth was feeling anxious, having witnessed Jupiter's moroseness at the recent meetup of the Sun, which was illuminated by the moon in all her glory, and was wondering whether she could help make sense of things for Jupiter. Jupiter wanted to be left alone more than anything else, and was letting her know that he would sort things out soon enough, given a little time, and would speak to her. Earth, of course, was worried that there may be some overthinking or analysis paralysis happening to Jupiter, while Jupiter felt he just needed some breathing space from everyone wanting him to make up his mind and be definitive. So they agreed to a compromise where they would work together to understand why Jupiter wanted so badly to be creative, and Earth agreed that would probably ease the stress around the how to be creative. She also let Jupiter know her concern was just that given Jupiter was in Taurus and Taurus was so enmeshed in her, she wanted them to be effective in the time they had together, and this was not about any sort of pressure or question on Jupiter's intent. Now, this made sense to Jupiter, also helped him relax about the text he'd received from Venus asking to be her buddy in her creative process. which he wasn't sure he was capable of. But now, with the support from the earth, he was feeling able to breathe easier once more. So now, the energy this week is definitely one where there's a lot of thinking happening. And the theme of that thinking seems to be around sustainability. We have skills, we have talents, we have things to say and express, but what are we committing to? And are we going to have the strength and energy to keep doing that? Now, if any of this resonates with you, please drop a comment, please like the video, please subscribe to my channel, and please share this with others. I would love to be able to work with you if that is something you'd like to do through the energy reset sessions. They could be for you personally, or they could be in a relationship, or for homes, for factories, all kinds of things and spaces. Do get in touch with me if that's something you'd like to do. My email is asoneis.pn@gmail.com. You could leave a comment here, or you could head over to my Instagram page, which is @Pallavi108, and you could leave a comment there or DM me there. I would so love to be able to share this with more and more people, to empower them to feel less pain and more relief in their life. And right now, I would like to channel to you all the love and light that I can. Thank you for listening.